Hi, this is Illuminite, known to many simply as James. I've recently had a few locks ask me for tips or ideas on what I might be doing differently to reach the DPS numbers I do. Well, the most simple yet honest answer I have is just that I push buttons really fast. I figured it might be helpful for someone out there to actually see what I see and to walk you through a bit of what's going on in my mind during a fight. To start off, I just wanted to introduce my interface so that you already have an idea where to look as I walk through my attacks. First off, you have dot timer, which is probably the best place to look to find the dot durations, although lately I've been using it more just for the cooldown timers below. Next I have Volcano's buff bars, which are very useful for seeing which trinkets or other procs you have active, so that you don't go wasting those on a life tap or something along those lines. These here are the debuff durations given by Xpearl, which I found myself looking at more than dot timer simply because they're more central to my screen. And then I have Quartz, I suppose because it gives a decent indicator of when to hit your next button. But since Blizzard fixed spells that you don't really need to use the stop casting macros, it's not really quite as essential as it once was. Lastly, here are some timers that I've honestly never looked at, and somehow have barely noticed up until I took this screenshot. So now that you know my screen a little bit better, I think it's time to dive right in and show you why I decide to cast what I do. The first tip I have is just that you need to remember to apply your spellstone before every fight. It's a very good and effectively free boost to your DPS. I kick myself more for forgetting spellstones than anything else, so this nice big text here is just as much a reminder for me. So I almost always start off with a Shadow Bolt. If your tank sucks at threat or has unlucky misses, this is pretty much suicide. But in the general case, it's the best opener for DPS, since it gets your Shadow Embrace debuff up right away, ensuring that all dots will get its bonus. Plus, odds are you're going to cast Shadow Bolt later anyway, so why not get that debuff up first? The next thing I usually cast is Haunt, basically for the same reasons of getting dots the most debuff time, but I cast it second since Haunt refreshes the Shadow Embrace debuff, where Shadow Bolt doesn't do anything to the Haunt debuff. So as you saw, after that I jump into the Unstable Affliction Immolate combo. Since they both have the same duration, it's handy to have them together so that you can think about them as one unit that will always be cast at the same time. Ideally, you'd probably want to get Corruption up before these two, since it's the moneymaker, but I always started off with Unstable Affliction and the Burning Crusade, and really can't just break the habit. After the combo, I usually throw up the instant casts in order of their damage: Corruption, Agony, then Siphon Life. At that point you'd be pretty close to having used up enough mana to life tap, and that's pretty much my opening sequence. At this point your goal is to spam Shadow Bolts while always thinking ahead on what your next spells are going to be, so that you can minimize your dot's downtime. I really can't stress enough how vital it is to your DPS to not waste time between spells deciding what you should cast. To show you a bit of what I mean by that, let's look at how I'd analyze this particular moment in time. Here I see I have 1 second left in casting my current Shadow Bolt, and then Unstable Affliction will be the next debuff to wear off. Since I know my cast time for Unstable Affliction is just under 1.5 seconds due to haste, I can add these times and find that if I cast Unstable Affliction immediately after the current Shadow Bolt, it will hit the mob in roughly 2.5 seconds. Since that is longer than the 1.9 second duration left on my current Unstable Affliction, it's safe to say that my current Unstable Affliction will get its final tick off, thus preserving maximum DPS, and then Unstable Affliction is an excellent choice for my next cast. Additionally, since I grouped Unstable Affliction and Immolate together due to their equal durations, I know that immediately after Unstable Affliction, I will be casting Immolate again. The next thing I look at is my Haunt cooldown, to make sure it won't be up in the middle of my Unstable Affliction Immolate combo, and see that there's 4.8 seconds left. I'm safe for the combo, however, my 1 second remaining for the Shadow Bolt cast, added to the cast times of Unstable Affliction and Immolate, is only about 4 seconds, leaving another 0.8 seconds before I can even start to cast Haunt again. There are thus 3 decent options for what I should cast after Immolate. The first option is nothing, just give my fingers a 0.8 second break. Really, this is not a decent option at all. I just listed it to point that out. The second option is to start casting a Shadow Bolt. This is a pretty good option since there will only be about 1.7 seconds of Shadow Bolt left to cast when your Haunt cooldown is up, which should allow you to cast Haunt right after the Shadow Bolt and have it hit just before your old Haunt debuff falls off. Lastly, I see that I'm down to 89% mana, with full health, and have 3 more spells to cast before the spell in question. Combined with the 300 spirit I get after life tapping due to my beautiful tier 7 bonus, it is my ultimate decision to finish off this haunt cooldown with the life tap. Not necessarily the optimal choice, but it's a safe one if I'm worried about haunt falling off in the previous Shadow Bolt option. Let's see how this all plays out. So there you have it. In the fraction of a second it took to process all my mods have to offer, I decided my next 4 spells. You're more than welcome to try and go further. Maybe there are people in this world that can do the next 20. Personally, I just try to keep it at a constant 4 or so, especially since in most encounters there's too much other stuff going on to be able to predict that far into the future. Try it out for the next minute and a half. See if you're able to keep up with my cast and if you'd be making the same choices as I did. I will tell you right now though, there is one decision I cringe over every time I watch this. See if you can figure out what I really wish I had done differently. The last, but still very important step, is to replace your Shadow Bolts with Drained Soul once your target gets below 25% health. At this point, Immolate is actually not worth as much damage per cast time as Drained Soul will be, so you should try to remove it from your spell choices. However, the rest of your dots are important to keep up, not only for their own DPS, but also because each Affliction debuff increases the damage of Drained Soul by another 4% thanks to the Soul Siphon talent. The problem here is that Drained Soul is a channeled spell, and probably will still be channeling when you need to start reapplying debuffs. Probably the best solution to this problem is a mod called the extraordinarily ambiguous name, Drained Soul Timer, which you can get from wowinterface.com. It plays a gentle sound and shows a text warning every time your Drained Soul ticks. That way you can avoid wasting any partial Drained Soul ticks when you go to reapply your debuffs. Now I make absolutely no claim to have mastered the art of breaking a Drained Soul channel, but you can see the general idea here. Once you know a dot will need reapplying or that your haunt cooldown is up, wait for the next Drained Soul tick and then take care of it. You'll notice that my Dying Curse trinket procs, which caused me to let the Drained Soul that received the extra 765 spell power run its full course. This is actually not the best move, since it allowed multiple debuffs to wear off. You can probably hold out a proc boosted Drained Soul and not worry about Siphon Life, maybe even ignoring an unstable Affliction. But as always, letting Haunt fall off is a terrible idea, especially since Haunt is all that's keeping Shadow Embrace refreshed, now that you're not using Shadow Bolts. Well, that's all the tips I have for now. Hopefully you found something useful in this carefully planned out rant, and are well on your way to becoming a much better Affliction Warlock than I am. If you have any other questions, or just want to complain about what a terrible video this is, feel free to send me a message. Until next time, this is James saying, if you take care of your dot timer, it'll take care of you.